Hey there, I'm Gabriel from PullNotifier, and I'm here to help you configure PullNotifier for your team. So first of all, congrats on discovering the tool. It's highly underrated and it's super useful for teams. And second of all, I'm expecting you to have a base knowledge of what PullNotifier does, just based off of the video we sent you on your email. If you haven't watched it, I recommend that you do. I'm gonna link it somewhere here on this page. And yeah, let's get started. So I'm gonna divide this guide into different parts, and I'm gonna list down the time skips below so that you can easily skip to the part you feel is relevant to you and your team. So the divisions are: number one, configuring the app for basic teams. Teams like with less than 10 developers or less than 5 developers. The second part is configuring the app for larger teams with multiple different repos and Slack channels. And the third part is configuring the app for monorepos or just advanced or highly customized settings. And the last part I want to touch on is the supplementary Slack app that is in charge of tagging you in Slack. So here's the most basic setup you can do for your org. So you're on the PullNotifier dashboard here, and when you click on your org, you can see all the repos that you give the PullNotifier app access to. So you can choose to give access to like a limited amount of repos, or you can choose to give it all of your repos. So the basic setup here is you can map a Slack channel for the whole org. So any PR that's open on these repos will be sent to the Slack channel that you select here. So let's select a default channel. Let's choose general, click allow. Sometimes Slack does this. It makes you select multiple times, but yeah. So we've successfully connected the general channel to the whole org. So you can see here that all these repos, PRs will be sent to that org. So let's do that demo here. So let's open up a PR on, say, automation scripts. Okay, let's just give a dummy commit here. And then we're just gonna create the PR. So it's gonna send to general like this. Okay, so anything you do here will reflect on that message. So that's the most basic setup you can do, and that's perfect for teams with less than 10 developers or teams with just 1 or 2 repos. Okay, so the next configuration that you can do is you can map repos to specific Slack channels. So this is perfect for like front-end and back-end teams. So you can see here that the UI repos are mapped to the team UI Slack channel. The back-end or API repos are mapped to the team back-end Slack channel, and we also have like different channels for different repos. So you can do that by clicking on this. So once you have a default Slack channel, you can just change it. Like for example, for this QA tests, it's currently mapped to the default Slack channel. You can change it here, and you can just map it to let's say just random or team QA. Click on allow. So now when you check it, it's going to be mapped to team QA. So any pull request you open on this repo, it'll be sent to the team QA Slack channel. Okay. And you can also remove the default Slack channel here. So you can just click on this remove mapping and click on delete. So it will remove the default, so you can just set up different Slack channels for each repo manually. Okay, so that's that. So another setup that we could do for monorepos or multiple teams working on the same repo. So for example, we have multiple teams working on the admin API repo. We have additional settings for that here. So you can map Slack channels based on the pull request label. So if we add, for example, team admin, we add, for example, team backend. So if we add that pull request tag, say for example here, or labels, team admin, save that. So when we tag that label here, it should go to the Slack channel of your choice. So let's choose that here, team BE, and let's just choose like a random channel here. And the next thing that you can map on is the PR author. So if this guy, which is a PR author, opens a PR, then it should send to a different Slack channel, right? Okay, let's say DevOps. And the last thing that you can map on is the PR reviewer. So when you assign a reviewer here, it should go to a specific Slack channel. Okay, something like that. So you have highly customizable settings here that you can configure based on your team's preferences and or how your repo or team works. Okay, so the precedence here, or the priority, is, you can see that here, labels take the most priority. So if you tag a label, even if all the other conditions are true, if you tag a label, it goes to that Slack channel. And then next is the reviewer. So if you tag a reviewer, then it goes to that Slack channel. And the last thing that we prioritize is the PR author. So also a good point to touch on here is if labels work after PR creation. So say for example, we created a PR already like this. Okay, so we created a PR. We didn't add the labels yet or any reviewers. So say we're gonna create this PR and we're gonna add the label after. So we're not accounting for that case because there are a lot of edge cases here. So in that case, we would recommend maybe closing the PR and opening a new one and then just labeling it correctly. We are brainstorming ways on how we can work around this, but just letting you know that this is the current behavior. Okay, so once you have this customized setup, we recommend removing the default Slack channel, because right now with this setup, you currently have a default Slack channel. So if the PR doesn't meet the conditions here, it sends to this Slack channel, which may not be what you want or may be what you want. So it depends on your team. But if that's not what you want, then you can just remove this default mapping here, click confirm. So it's not going to have a default Slack channel, and you're going to rely on the conditions here for sending or mapping the Slack channel. Okay, nice. Hopefully that was easy to understand, and hopefully that wasn't too much to take in. But if you do have questions, feel free to reach out to me and I'd be very happy to help. So that ends the configuration mapping section of the guide. We're going to move on to some minor settings with org settings and some minor repo settings. Let's go over some org settings. When you click on this button, you get shown the customization settings model here. The first toggle is for including the pull request description to the Slack message. Okay, so when you toggle this on, the pull request description is added to the Slack notification here. So this is useful if you want to display additional context to that PR. Okay, the second toggle here is if you want to parse that pull request description as markdown in Slack. So once you toggle that on, it'll parse links, it'll parse like bold text, lists, and all of that. So that's there if you prefer to have that turned on. Okay, so the third input here is for blacklisting comments. So once we comment here anything, it notifies the Slack thread and displays it here. So if you have GitHub bots that comments on your PRs and you prefer not to send a notification once they comment, you can add them to the blacklist here. Let's say GitHub bot. You should add the username of the bot, and you can just copy paste from this one. Okay. And the fourth one is the PR author blacklist. So if you add here a PR author, they won't trigger notifications to that Slack channel. Okay, so that should be pretty straightforward. Click on save. Next up is the repo settings. So when you click on this, you have two toggles. And the first one is if you want to mute comment notifications entirely. So if you prefer to not receive notifications like this on the Slack thread, then you can toggle this on. And the second toggle is if you want to mute approval and changes requested notifications. So by default, our GitHub app will notify the thread if the PR was approved. So let's try this. Let's request for this reviewer. I'm gonna approve this review here. So this is approved now, and it'll send a message here if it was approved. So if you prefer to have that muted, then you can just toggle this on. Okay, so that's it for the repo settings and org settings. So now we're at the last part of the guide, and we're gonna go over the extension app for Slack user mentions. So this is for when you want to be mentioned on Slack for better visibility. So it's a completely different Slack app that you install, and once you install that, you will be able to map GitHub users to Slack users. And you can also map GitHub teams to Slack user groups. Okay, let's see that in action. So let's open a new PR and assign this guy as a reviewer. And since we mapped this user here to a specific Slack user, it should mention him in Slack and notify him. So let's create this PR and check the Slack message. So you can see here that the reviewers are tagged, and whenever this user gets mentioned anywhere on the PR, like this, you should also be tagged on the comment here. Okay. And that also works well with GitHub team reviewers and Slack user groups. So you can imagine how this streamlines your pull request visibility and notifications. And that's mostly it for the guide. If you do have any questions, feel free to reach out, and I'd be very happy to help. And if you do notice any bugs or feature requests, feel free to post on this feature board here. And that's it. Thanks.